Hi everyone, so today I'm going to try and tackle the elusive, mysterious subject of playing ahead of the beat, playing on the beat, playing behind the beat, what I think about it. It's a big subject and there's many aspects. So the first thing I tell all my students, and sorry you've heard this before, but is you have to have a beat of your own in the first place to play ahead of or behind or on. If you don't have your own beat that you can supply yourself without the help of drums or a drum machine or a metronome, you can't push it, right? So just work on your own groove, make that whole dance hall dance with your quarter notes, you know? And that obviously takes all the things that we talk about, the strong, consistent sound, open strings, exercises, all that stuff, and left hand strength, and knowing some lines that fall under the fingers, and playing the skip notes that sound good and don't, sound like you're falling up the steps. So that's what I say first. Just work on holding a tempo and having a groove that people can, hear. And then when you do have that, your life becomes so much easier because drummers and the musicians can just hear it and identify with it and hook up with it. And maybe they adjust their tempo a bit just to hook up with it, or you find a happy medium. You might not be playing exactly in the same part of the beat, but if you're both strong, you're kind of going along like this, or you can find where you fit with that beat. And that might take some time with certain drummers, but if it's a good drummer, then it should be okay. But you've got to take responsibility for that yourselves as bass players and not rely on the drums to be that metronome. For instance, like when you practice with a metronome, the metronome's going to stay there, right? It's a machine. You could sort of play all around it, but when you're playing with human beings, it's slightly different because they're human and they're not like a machine. And it's a two-way thing. That's just as much your responsibility as the drummers. So just bear that in mind, get that strong pocket, set yourself to the highest standard. Now, as far as actually playing ahead of the beat, I feel like with me, certain tempos, when I get together with certain drummers and certain tempos, I can. Sometimes other tempos, I'm not so ahead of the beat. It depends, but I was a huge Ray Brown fan, I still am. And when I was younger, what got me into his world of where he placed his beat was the obvious thing of just transcribing his walking bass lines and playing along, exactly trying to mimic where he placed that note exactly. And I remember doing that with some of Oscar Peterson Trio records and a few choruses of, there was a couple of tunes. There was Sometimes I'm Happy from Live in Chicago. I played along with that, and there's a great bass solo too, that's another thing. And then Days of Wine and Roses from We Get Requests, a couple of choruses of when he goes into walking, that sort of thing. So that really helped me just embody that world. Now, if you're not playing along to records, if you're not transcribing those great bass players, and you're just using drum machines or whatever it is, iReal, but play-alongs and stuff, you're not going to embody that feel or that beat, because those are machines. You need to play along with the real thing and feel the humans and get inside their world. So that, me doing that with Ray Brown, and I did it with some, Bob Hurst and those later things too, and that helped me just get inside playing in that way. And it happened to be pushy, a lot of that music, just because I like that. Now so that's how you do it. You have to listen to it and absorb yourself. You can't jump ahead and do that. That, rather than sort of sitting and analyzing it, with a metronome and working on, you've got to, just get the feel of the bass players who did it. Now, it's a huge subject, and I'm just touching, the surface here, but also tempos really matter. If you're only playing like 3 or 4 different swing tempos, because the scene that you play in doesn't really deal with other tempos, or you're just not concentrating on that, everything's medium swing or fast or bad, then that's not going to help too, because the tempo is really important. And a lot of the times I think that playing ahead of the beat gets confused with actually just hearing something just a few clicks faster, which has a bit more of a vibe, or even 10 BPM faster, something, the difference between 160 and 170, there is a big feeling there, but that not be felt. So that's another problem, and I feel like maybe you can alleviate that maybe by practicing a tempo and then just adjusting a few clicks higher, a few clicks slower with the metronome, or seeing how that feels. But also just playing along to records, having a playlist of different drummers and trying to find similar tempo areas and just see how it feels and playing along to that, So yeah, I mean, it's a big subject. I know I'm talking a lot of stuff here. So that's the basis of playing ahead or playing behind. Now you've got to really analyze. I know one of you wrote in and asked for a playlist, and I'm going to think about it. A playlist of examples of bass players playing ahead of the beat in different rhythm sections. But obviously there's this Ray Brown and Ed Thigpen, and there's a great video that again, one of you hit me to of Christian McBride talking with Greg Hutchinson on an open studio lesson on YouTube, and they're talking about Greg Hutchinson is a great drummer, how he had to hold Ray Brown back, and he found a spot because Ray was really ahead, so he sat back, and how that relationship between those two great musicians sort of worked. So check out that video, but check out all those great pairings, Paul Chambers, Philly Joe, the different tempos. Sometimes it feels relaxed and it feels like laid back and sits there nicely. Sam Jones, Lewis Hayes, Paul Chambers and Jimmy Cobb, all of them. Ray Brown, obviously, I've mentioned before, but Ron Carter and Tony Williams. Try and stick with the earlier ones first, just because the time sort of sticks. Another record I used to love to play along with too was Soul Station, Hank Mobley. It's Art Blakey and Paul Chambers. So just understand the feeling and try and transcribe a couple of choruses of each of those pairings of drummers and bass players and try and get into their world. So yeah, that's how I feel about that. And there's probably stuff I'm missing out, but please, I'm interested in your contributions if you have any sort of ideas about this too. All right.